I'm Kate Kelly with America Comes Alive, where you'll find great stories simply told. Guide dogs for the blind. Who ever thought of that? In the early 20th century, those without sight were marginalized members of society. They had to rely on family members to lead them to town or to help with tasks at home. But World War I brought many changes. It was the start of chemical weaponry, and mustard gas blinded many soldiers. After the war, a German canine officer considered that there might be a way to train animals in the war dog program to help the blind. In 1925, successful Minnesota businessman Jack Sinekin heard about what was taking place in Germany. He was so impressed that he funded a dog and a trainer to come to Minnesota to work. Minnesota had a blind senator, and Jack Sinekin wisely offered the first dog to Senator Thomas Shaw. In the late 1920s, Senator Shaw and his dog Lux became a familiar sight around Washington, D.C. This exposure to lawmakers laid groundwork for eventual changes in the laws. Another person fascinated by Germany's program was Dorothy Eustace. She lived in Switzerland, training German shepherds for police work with the Swiss Army. Eustace heard about the guide dog training taking place in Potsdam, Germany. She obtained permission to observe the work, and she too began to experiment with her own dogs. Dorothy Eustace was a well-connected American, and in 1926 she received a letter from an editor at the Saturday Evening Post asking her to write an article about her police dog program. Instead, Eustace chose to write about the guide dog work happening in Potsdam. When the article was published, it was read by many, but no one was more excited than Nashville resident 25-year-old Morris Frank, who was blind. When his father read the article, Morris Frank stopped his father mid-sentence. "I must have one of these dogs." His father contacted Eustace, who said Morris Frank would need to come to Switzerland to be trained. Fortunately, the Franks could afford it. But passenger ships were puzzled by what to do with a sightless passenger traveling alone. What if he fell overboard? The eventual solution was to classify him as a package. He was not permitted to move around the ship until a staff member came to escort him. To Morris, it felt like a very long trip. In Vevey, Switzerland, Dorothy Eustace and Morris Frank tested two of her dogs, ultimately selecting one that Morris named Buddy. When Dorothy Eustace took Morris Frank to the dock to board the United States-bound ship to return home, she said to him sternly, "If people won't let you go into restaurants, hotels, or onto transportation, Buddy will do you no good." Morris Frank understood the weight of his responsibility. When the ship docked in New York, a throng of reporters were there to write about the dog. One reporter dared Frank to have Buddy take Morris across the busy street by the port. Buddy and Morris Frank managed the crossing, and the press was there to document it all. From there, Morris Frank lived up to his promises. He established a school for guide dogs, now known as the Seeing Eye, and located in Morristown, New Jersey, and he spent his life traveling the country, visiting restaurants, riding on buses and trains, and staying in hotels. Each time he had to explain that Seeing Eye dogs needed to be permitted to go everywhere with their owners. By 1938, Frank knew that Buddy's health was failing, but they had one more task to accomplish: a ride on a commercial airplane. United Airlines had just implemented a new ruling for Seeing Eye dogs, and that spring, Morris Frank, with Buddy lying at his feet, flew on a United flight from Chicago to Newark, New Jersey. Morris Frank continued to use Seeing Eye dogs. He named them all Buddy, and each one of them helped Frank with his lifelong effort to open doors for blind people and their dogs. I'm Kate Kelly with America Comes Alive. Look around and see what inspires you.